Are you getting hungry? 'Cause your soil is. As one internet video once told me, this is the season to get all fat and sassy. It's a time of hunkering down, not being afraid to pack on a couple LBs. Treat yourself. Mashed potatoes, a little pot de creme, roast beef dip. Oh, jus. Oh, jus. The earth tends to do the same this time of year. She's taking a deep inward breath in during the cold, darker months. And in doing so, rather than pushing out her energy outwards towards the life above the soil, she's contracting it, conserving it, and utilizing it for the universe that's teeming beneath the soil surface. That universe of life is recreating, building fertility, establishing structure this time of year, and it's the most opportune time to feed it while it's doing all those important tasks. There's a few different ways to go about feeding your soil, but today we're going to be discussing using mulches, compost, good quality plant food to put on top of our beds to allow it to feed the soil during the winter and early spring months so it's ready to play come springtime next season as we begin our new round of sowing crops. There's a few types of compost that we can choose from this time of year that checks off a lot of boxes. The first one being our go-to well-decomposed animal manures. Very high in nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and you don't need a large amount on top of your beds to get the job done. So as we've been adding compost over the course of 5 years here as Stepping Stone Farm, we tend to use less and less each succeeding year. This compost here is the compost that we make here at Stepping Stone Farm. As you can tell, it's darker in color. It's not as rich in nitrogen because of all the carbonous material that we add to it, the wood chips, the leaf droppings, the twigs, the browns, but it makes for a really high quality tilth to put on top of the soil. And in conjunction with the cow manure, it's a very broad-based plant food that we can apply to our beds here. A couple other notable mulches that we use are leaf mold and wood chips. Leaf mold or leaf litter, the name is a bit unsavory, but the product is anything but, is decomposed leaves, 100% leaves. And it takes a while for them to decompose, around 1.5 to 2 years. And this batch here is about 75% of the way there, but that's okay. Leaf mold doesn't necessarily have a high concentration of nutrients for plants, but what it lacks in that area, it makes up for in humic acid. Humic acid is this element that helps promote plant growth, more specifically root growth. Even more specifically, to help connect the mycelium with the plant roots that we just talked about. It's a fantastic mulch as far as building good structure and tilth to our beds, but we don't want to use too much of it because it does lack those necessary nutrients that the plants so need. And last but certainly not least are wood chips. Wood chips are just the chipped, fallen tree limbs and trunks of the local trees here. Ideally, 2 to 3 year old age wood chip makes for a very high quality mulch that we put on our walkways and our pathways. And when we do that, we are dramatically increasing the mycelium growth and the fungal networks that we talked about that both establish themselves in the walkways but colonize the beds. Beyond that, the wood chip provides a lovely walking area for our paths and our walkways, so there's no mucky or muddiness this time of year. Suppresses weed seeds. And as our plants establish themselves, they tend to root in the pathways, not just strictly in the vegetable beds areas. So we're passively feeding all the soil here, both the vegetable beds and the walkways, by using mulches on the surface of our pathways. By adding compost, in this case, roughly 1 inch layer of it, we're feeding the soil life. And in turn, the soil life feeds our plants. The soil life does a much better job of taking the food where it's needed most for our plants, to allocate it, to make sure it's broken down into plant-soluble particles, which makes it most readily available to the plants. And compost is the most broad-based food we can give to our soil. The soil will go ahead and take this food, break it down accordingly, allocate it accordingly, without us even breaking a sweat. Except for what I'm doing right now. Woo, doggy. It's getting a little warm, ain't it? I have a garden rake here, and that's really the only tool that's necessary for this job here. And I'm just lightly spreading it across the surface of the bed. Focusing on the bed, not the walkways, because that's for the wood chips. And I'm only allowing the tines of the rake to sink in about a ½ inch, because I'm not trying to disturb the soil. I want the structure of the soil to be left relatively untouched this time of year. I'm only using the rake as an implement to spread the compost. Okay, we have our compost spread. And although this next step isn't necessary, I like it because I have crippling OCD and I'm quite neurotic about the layout of the plants here. But come on, who doesn't like a pretty garden? Beauty is criminally underrated. I use a leaf rake to gently further level out the surface of the soil, and in doing so, I'm slightly pushing the larger organic materials towards the edge of the bed, so the surface of the bed itself is nice and fine. I'll run my rake one more time, just lightly dragging it to create a really lovely surface. Get any last large organic debris off the surface of the bed onto the walkways. There it will slowly break down, contribute to the fertility of our paths. And this bed here is checked off my to-do list. Okay, okay. I see you, well-fed soil. The next step will be to lay wood chips in the pathways here. I'm doing really just a light dusting of wood chips. If I were to start out fresh, building a garden, I would put about 2 to 3 inches of wood chips in the walkways, 4 to 6 inches of compost on top of the beds. That seems like a lot, but at that stage you're trying to build topsoil as opposed to maintain topsoil. 5 years in, as I mentioned, these beds have an ample amount of good quality compost within their reserved bank of fertility. And so we're only adding around an inch or so each year, and that's enough to provide enough food, microbial activity for the soil life to be happy, to pass on that happiness to our plants all year long. We feed our beds once, we flip our beds about 3 times, and we're always focused on how can we best steward the soil. Adding compost and wood chips and mulches is by far up there as one of the best ways to feed our soil this time of year.